Hey everyone, welcome back to John's Watch. Today I'm going to be taking a look at a new game called Mario and Luigi Brothership on Nintendo Switch. This game was released on Nintendo Switch on November 7th, 2024. Its regular price is $80 Canadian or your regional equivalent, and it's developed by Acquire and published by, obviously, Nintendo. And I just wanted to say thank you very much to Nintendo for giving me a review code for this game. This is the fifth game in the Mario and Luigi series of games. It's the first original title, I guess I'd say, since 2015's Paper Jam on the 3DS. And so this is a series that has now spanned 4 different consoles. The very first one was Superstar Saga in 2003 on the GBA. Then there were 2 DS entries, 2 3DS entries, and then 2 3DS remakes. And finally, here we are 9 years later with Brothership on Nintendo Switch. So all the previous games before this current one, Brothership, were developed by a team called Alpha Dream. They unfortunately went bankrupt in 2019, which is why there weren't really any other games after the last remake for the 3DS in 2018. And so that's why this game is developed by a new company, a different company, Acquire. And you will likely recognize the name, well, you might not recognize the name Acquire, but you'll recognize a couple of the games that they've worked on. The ones that really stand out to me are the 2 Octopath Traveler games. So what is the Mario and Luigi series? It's sort of like a JRPG, kind of. There's turn-based combat where you control each of the brothers with, you know, in and out of combat, they're controlled by separate buttons. You kind of control Mario with A, and you control Luigi with B. So if you're out in the overworld and you need to jump to hit a box or whatever, if you've got Mario under the box, you can press A to make him jump into it. If you happen to have Luigi under the box, you press B to make him jump into it. For the most part, you control Mario walking around in the overworld, and Luigi just follows you automatically, but you have a small bit of control over Luigi in the fact that you can make him jump with the B button. Like I said, combat is turn-based, but it is very, very similar to the Super Mario RPG game. That's a game that was remade for a Nintendo Switch last year. It's a game that I played on Nintendo Switch last year, and so coming into this game, the combat instantly felt very, very familiar to me because Super Mario RPG is a game that I played very recently. If you're not familiar with that combat style, it's very self-explanatory and presumably on screen right now. Basically, it's turn-based combat. When it's your turn, your team is just Mario and Luigi. You basically pick which enemy you want to attack, and then when you attack them, you get slightly more active combat where you basically press a couple of buttons in order to do extra damage. So for example, if you're controlling Mario, you press A to select an enemy. You press A the first time Mario hits him, which makes him bounce up into the air. Then you press B to combo with Luigi, and then you press A again to do a big damage to the enemy. And the button prompts are pretty much just reversed if you're controlling Luigi. Same as Mario, you press A to select the enemy, but then you press B, A, and then B to do the full button combination to do the max damage possible. It's very simple, there's not much depth to it, but it does add a little bit more of an active element to the turn-based combat. You're also able to interact when it's your enemy's turn as well, so the enemy will make it very clear which of the brothers they're targeting. And then you basically need to learn your enemy's attack patterns. At the stage I was in the game, enemies only had a max of 2 different attack patterns. I don't know if they get more attack patterns later on, but I mean, 2 is already probably enough to juggle. So an enemy will target one of the brothers, they'll do their attack. If you know their attack timing, then you can jump with A for Mario or B for Luigi. And if you time it right, you'll jump over their attack and then hopefully land on top of the enemy to not only avoid all their damage, but do damage to them instead. And that's really the combat. There are other items that you can use, like you can use a mushroom to recover 30 health. You can resurrect one of the brothers if they've died. but you're also able to use these items out of combat as well. And for the whole time I played, which was only about an hour and a half, I think it was, I didn't need to use any items during combat. I got fairly close to losing poor old Luigi in one of them, but I knew if I just locked in, I wasn't gonna let him die, so I just finished the combat encounter and then gave him a nice little mushroom afterwards. The story is fairly typical Nintendo lighthearted fare. The brothers randomly get pulled through a portal into a whole new world, which explains why they are there to save the day and why the world does need saving, because presumably they've saved the Mushroom Kingdom enough times by this point. And they end up on this island that's part ship, part island, called Shipshape Island, and the island essentially sails around the ocean, and as you're sailing, you will spot other smaller islands out and about, and you basically blast yourself onto each of these smaller islands, and solve a couple of puzzles, do some combat encounters, and eventually you'll find a lighthouse at the end of the island, and then you link that lighthouse and smaller island. As you'd expect, the puzzles are pretty simple as well. It definitely seems like a bit more of a simple game, one designed for a younger audience for sure. One of the early puzzles is there's a teeter-totter, a seesaw, and you need to use that to reach a higher bit of ground. So basically you get Luigi to stand on one end of it, so you as Mario can run up the opposite side and jump onto the other platform before the seesaw sinks back down. Or another example is you'll find these floating platforms that kind of alternate between Mario and Luigi having to stand on them. In this case, Luigi controls himself, and you basically see that Luigi gets a green glow around him, which means you can then press L to activate Luigi do this thing mode, and he will then jump onto the first platform, which will activate the next one for Mario to jump onto. Mario jumps onto it, activates the next Luigi platform, so on and so on until you've made a bridge across somewhere, or you've got access to a chest or something like that. This green glow that surrounds Luigi that I mentioned before is part of the Luigi logic system they've got in the game, which is basically when you see the green glow, you press the L button and Luigi will help you solve a puzzle. And this just happens in various ways, and it doesn't take very much thinking. The computer does most of the thinking for you. You get a cute little cutscene whenever you do it. It's kind of cute, but yes, it is very, very basic and very, very simple. On that topic, the game is extremely hand-holdy. Like I said, I only played about an hour and a half. I think without the tutorials and dialogue, there's probably about 15 minutes of gameplay in there. Now, I'm not saying there should be no dialogue or story or anything. The story is what it is. It's far too simple and uninteresting for me to care about. But it instantly took me back to Pokemon Sun and Moon, which was notorious for being so heavy-handed with its tutorials. In those games, you literally, especially at the start of the game on the tutorial island, which lasts about 3 hours, every few steps you take, you're being interrupted by a cutscene and someone telling you stuff that you have already figured out how to do, and it's exactly the same in this game. I thought it might just be the tutorial on the ship island, but even once I got to the first proper island, and then even the second island after the, what I hoped was still the tutorial, I was still getting interrupted pretty much constantly by NPCs telling me things that I'd already figured out, and I very quickly made a point of not looking at any signs or anything, because I knew they were just going to tell me something that was just ridiculously obvious. So yeah, it's a Nintendo game. Its ESRB rating is obviously E for everyone. Most of their games are rated E, but this one definitely felt a bit dumbed down. I think the target audience for this one is probably like an 8-year-old, something like that. which is a little bit weird because the first game did come out in 2003. That's 21 years ago. So if you, for example, were 8 years old when you played the first one on the Game Boy Advance, you would now be 29 years old. And this game does not play or talk to you like you are a 29-year-old. It talks to you like you're still an 8-year-old. So yeah, it just seems a little bit strange to resurrect this series that I would assume the target audience would have been people who grew up with this series back in the 2000s, and then just to, super dumb it down and make it as hand-holdy as some of Nintendo's other games is just a bit of a strange decision, I thought. The graphics are a little bit stylized. The character models are all cel-shaded. I don't think cel-shaded is the actual term for it, but I think if I say cel-shaded, you know what I mean. Characters have like a black outline around them. And they look pretty good, especially in the movies at the opening of the game. But the opening of the game, and this was, in the first 10 minutes or something, it drove me insane. I'll admit I haven't played any of the other games in the series, but it starts with Mario and Luigi getting separated, and all they do for the first few minutes of this cutscene is say over and over and over, Mario, Luigi, Mario,
Mario, Luigi, Luigi, Mario, Luigi, Luigi, Mario, Luigi, 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 Mario, Luigi, 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 Mario, Luigi.
And it just drove me crazy. It was just those voice lines over and over and over again during this cinematic. And then, like, right at the end of it, I think it's Mario or something says, thank you. And I'm like, you can say more than just your names. You're not just Pokemon. So why was it just Mario, Luigi, over and over and over again? It was driving me insane. And then even once you get fully into the game and, there's more cutscenes later on, they're still mostly just saying each other's names, I guess, but like it really does feel like they're Pokemon because all you hear is the brothers' names. But then occasionally they'll say things like, oh yeah, and let's-a go. So yeah, again, they do know how to say more than just their names. And then it seems like when they actually want to communicate something, they speak like a sort of pseudo-Italian language. Like, it's not, like, actually Italian, but it sounds like kind of like a made-up language that's quite close to Italian. But all the other characters understand what they're saying, and so they do the typical silent protagonist thing where, like, Mario gestures and does this weird Italian voice. And then, like, the NPC with a dialogue box will repeat what he said in a text box, like, oh, you're saying we need to do this, Mario. Got it. Probably won't bother too many other people, but yeah, just watching the cutscene, I just felt like I was losing my mind from the Mario, Luigi. Despite my complaints with the cinematics and the voices and stuff like that, the music of the game is really, really good. Actually, it's very catchy. The battle music especially is very fun and kind of bouncy, I guess. Yeah, it's got a really good soundtrack. Performance is absolutely solid in this game. It's locked to 30 FPS, which isn't a surprise with a Nintendo Switch game, but it does actually hit 30 FPS 99.8% of the time, something like that, which is a nice surprise after some recent first-party Nintendo games that are made for Switch have struggled. Echoes of Wisdom was unplayable for me with the horrific frame rates. So it's just nice to see that they still can manage to make games that perform properly on the platform they're designed for. I analyzed the first 45 minutes of my footage and could find only a couple of very, very tiny instances where the frame rate did dip below 30 FPS. Combat was completely fine, even once Luigi got involved and there were two of us and multiple enemies on screen. Still perfectly fine at 30 FPS. If you're seeing any jittering on like the chart in this video, I think that's just something to do with how I've set the recording up. Need to work on that a little bit. But like, when the jitters are that minor, I'm gonna put it down to my error and not the game. Moving about in the world and solving puzzles, still 30 FPS, rock solid. The only time I saw a couple of dips were during cutscenes, and by dips I mean literally 2 or 3 frames per second for 3 seconds or something. Just not an issue in the slightest. So yeah, if you're interested in the performance of this game, it is fantastic. No worries at all, as long as you're fine with 30 FPS. Well, there you go. That was a look at the first hour and a half or so of Mario and Luigi Brothership on Nintendo Switch. Yeah, overall thoughts, it's just too simplistic for me. I quite liked Super Mario RPG, the remake on Nintendo Switch. That felt like it had a bit more depth than this game has, even though this is obviously very inspired and based off of that series. But yeah, I think maybe it's just having more party members and more variety in equipment and stuff like that just made that game seem a bit more in depth. Yeah, this game's just so simplistic, and the hand-holding, you know, like if it didn't get better after the tutorial, the first island and the second island, I don't think it's gonna get good enough for me to want to play any more of it, unfortunately. Thank you guys very much for watching. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys later. Bye!